One.
Hey,
Good morning, Birgit, and all the participants today. We have a lively and grand audience. We're looking forward to Birgit's wonderful teaching techniques, and now she will begin.
hey, thanks for joining, thank you so much, iPad, for having this opportunity to share painting roses. So, a word for introduction. I have been a porcelain painter. It's a Royal Porcelain manufacturer. In 78 I started, and I worked there for them for 9 years. And I have here a picture which shows my workplace, and it's full with little cups of let's say here 12 cups, which we had to decorate, all individual, all different. So painting a rose was always very special because it always took a little bit longer and was not done very often, only on very special designs, a little bit more elaborate designs. Let me show you some show and tell first before we start to actually painting them. You've probably seen this vase here, and what I want to show you is all the little roses here. Can you see this little design made up of different roses? And here on the side as well, all these little roses here. These are little bouquets, all differently arranged, so so that you can see how very randomly they were structured, all very, very beautiful in its a very unpredictable design, smaller and bigger shapes. So that is one example. You have probably seen this one too, where there are open roses, not the cabbage rose, a couple of cabbage roses, but these were the favorite one of the Louise, and one of the favorite KPM designs, also with the rose on it. This one here one can find in the KPM stores, the cadre vase with the old roses. This one here is a band of roses on an egg. What else can I show you? I have this one painted with a half rose. This one, roses, open rose on a larger vase. I'd like to show you here what I'm working on. This is a design. Christmas is coming up, and I thought, let's do some, you know, little pine cones in a design. And another idea was, let's see, let me show you this real quick. There's one and combined with this one was one, also a larger one, because the thing is, if you paint a modern rose, it has not the same you know, the shape. Here's, for example, the new one, the modern rose, which is very squarey and very, you know, like a cylinder, which is not seen so often in the traditional porcelain painting. What is very interesting about it is how, when it opens up, how the leaves fold. So that is worth studying. For example, if you keep a dried one, you can really see, and it's worth studying before one starts painting. It's to do a drawing and to really study how the leaves are mounted, so they are not next to each other placed, but they're overlapping, and that comes very handy to know that if one has to design the rose from scratch, to know how the structure is of the rose. I have here, for example, I wanted to do that design with some fruit in it, and I used that peace rose, which I saw in the garden, but then I kind of had to refer to the cabbage rose, because it would not just be the same as in the old classical cabbage roses, which are used so nicely, because they're just rounder, and one can see the shape. It's not like a tulip, long tulip leaves. So let me show you this example, which, when I was in Berlin the last year with urban sketchers, we went to the rooftops of Berlin. Everybody was painting old steeples and on the rooftop, and I saw in that restaurant on the rooftop a pot and a cabbage rose. The most beautiful cabbage rose was growing there, and I used my sketchbook and I sketched that, and it made my sister was surprised that I would not paint the old steeples, but I was so fascinated by the cabbage rose, and it really made its way since then into the design of the recent fruit design, which I then this year painted in the Canadian school. This one here, for example, was a practice piece for that, and you can see that that cabbage rose, which has this beautiful white petal. It's not only pink all over, but it has a white petal. And what is characteristic of this wonderful petal cabbage rose is that one petal is sticking out, which helps with the asymmetry, because that is what you want to avoid at all costs. So just that a little bit. For example, I made a design here first to come up with an idea to arrange the pineapple grapes, and then I also put a lighter rose, a big one, smaller one, and small, and a little bud there. Oh, that is Christmas is coming there. And then after that sketch in watercolor, I did another sketch with pastel chalk, because pastel is wonderful for sketches, very forgiving, and you can easily, make changes, and that helps very much in the very first beginning stages where one still wants to do changes. So that is then how it ended up, the grapes and the pineapple and the white cabbage rose. Here's some more the little things. Oh yeah, here also a white rose, but this one is also more the modern one. So I really like the old English rose, which is Rosa centifolia, and the shape just lends itself so beautifully. It was also a pastel sketch. Here you can see some of the designs. This was in watercolor, and also the modern rose is just too squarey. So the old English roses are a little bit better. This was also drawn from life in my old garden, and also a little bit pastel colored pencil, so in different stages of growth, from the back, from the front, 3/4 view, and so on. So this is also a little design for the Christmas time. I'm working on a little bit something else, and oh yeah, and that is then the fruit design finished with cabbage rose. Okay, so a little bit show and tell first of all before we get started with the cabbage rose. I want to mention real quick the upcoming seminar class in Dallas for the iPad show that will be in October, and we'll be painting portraiture. Just a little quick before I forget it. And then the next seminar in February, it's Suzanne's place. We're all looking forward for this beautiful retreat again. So let's do a cabbage rose. So for that, we want to have everything prepared, what we want to use. We want to use a lighter and a darker pink that works always really nicely, because if one only uses one pink, it can easily look like a monochromatic painting. So if you have the time and the if you have the time, just go ahead and mix several ones where the paint can blend into each other, preferable while the paint is still wet. You can, of course, do it in layers, fire in between, come back later, add more layers. But I would like to share with you the technique we were using at the manufactory, where one could already use a minimum of firings in order to get a nice heavy layer of paint on in one sitting. So I have prepared. Oh, if you want to see the whole going through all the colors, I still have DVDs. DVD number 1, a 2-hour DVD where I am explaining for 2 hours to go through all the process with mixing with paints and different colors and the design of a rose bouquet. So I have prepared already a design yesterday using the closed medium technique, the classical technique, and I used this underpainting technique, which makes it very easy to model the shades of the green leaves, so that the shadow is already there, and all one needs to do then later on come back and add the yellow green and the blue green and those greens. So the process is first to paint the darkest darks, and then put a little bit of yellow on top of it. These will be the highlights, which are nice and light. So if you, I painted this yesterday, and today I can already touch it without it coming off. So this nicely and dry, it has to be in order for the next layer of the greens to go on without having to paint in between necessarily. One can, of course, fire, but for example, if these areas are not painted yet, then you would lose tracing. So you could just let it dry and then continue the next day with more paint. Now, I have used here for tracing, I've used the red waxy transfer paper, which is really, I like it a lot, because if one touches it, it does not come off easily. So if you by accident smudge it, put your hand on it, it does not wipe off like Saral tracing paper would do. And some other ones can be too light, so I want to do it a bit more visible right now. So what I could do is I could real quick put some yellow on here so that can dry before we start anything else right now. So let me, always like to have a couple of different spatulas here. So like that. So I'm dipping the brush here, and then for the yellow highlights, one just needs to, you know, add the yellow where one really wants to have it highlighted. So I'm putting this on now so that it can dry already a little bit while we are painting the rose, and then we can go on top of it a bit later when that is dry, so that this is already prepared. So one only wants to go with one stroke on top of it, because this liquid here is acting like a solvent. So you don't want to dissolve the dry underpainting, because if one rubs over and over, it will dissolve it, and then it will be gone. This here is a peacock's eye butterfly from Germany. So kind of wanted to make it as at least not too made up. So I want to look at a picture how the coloration is. It's a little bit yellow on the outside, and then there's this eye. This is a little bit yellow. So this was just painted on with mixture, and then let dry overnight. So then one does not need to fire in between, you know, like what you sometimes have to do when you use a open pen oil, to fire the lines in first. You can just go over it and add, while you are at a certain paint, you just put a little dab of color into the butterfly, and then when you're finished with the rose, then you have also finished the butterfly at the same time. So okay, so this is good for right now for the yellow. Now we let this dry. And so here I had already done that yesterday, so it will be dry enough to put the green on top of it. So the yellow away right now. Put it back into my little ink wells. This is the best way to store the fresh inks are in indented ink wells. I do have those for sale as well. I brought them back from Germany when I was in Germany recently, and because the paint is mixed more liquid than what it would be mixed with an open medium, since it has to be a fluid at all time. So let's make some paints for the rose. To show you how I'd like to have the paint consistency. He's a little bit of, I only mix about as much as I'm thinking to need for the day, because if one paints every day, it will not have a chance to get too firm. One can always refacilitate the paints. You don't need to throw them away unless they get too dusty and with debris in it, like little broken bristle tips and so on. So do you see how very little of fat oil I'm only adding on here? So, and then very little by little I work the powder paint in. So when you think of 1/3 fat oil and 2/3 of powder, it's about it is very it's very condensed. It's very condensed, and so therefore it gives you a very dark tone. It is not diluted with oil, these oils which keep the consistency so wide stretched out that the pigments are so far away. This one is so, what do you call it? I can't think of it right now, but it is it is not diluted. That is what I want to say. It is not diluted with those. This is how firm you want to mix it. And now is the time you would have to add your little helpers here, your little oils, in order to get the mixture fluid. So you don't want to put more fat oil. The fat oil goes a long way. This is a German closed medium, which I always get from Germany. So now is the time to put some turpentine in it. So when you refacilitate the paint the next day, you don't need to add more fat oil in it, because the fat oil will not evaporate. The only thing which evaporates is a liquid turpentine. So therefore you add that back on to make it flowing, as if you would use water when you use watercolor. But the binder, you know, the gamma arabic and watercolor, that is already there, so you don't need to add more of that. And the oiliness in turpentine also tends to make the paint more oily over time. So you have to compensate a bit for that, and always add a little bit more powder paint in it if the paint becomes too gooey and sticky for you to paint with. But always add turpentine, because it needs to be super liquid. So now we'll take our brush, and it is it needs to be a pointed round brush, and I have a bunch of those always for sale. They have to be pointed and round in various sizes, as well as pointed fine detailer brush, and in various sizes, miniature, is shorter and finer. So all kinds of different shapes and sizes I have available for sale, as well as a couple of bending brushes for different purposes, gold bending and so on. So okay. So now this is the dark paint, and using a different spatula now, I'm also having ready a little bit of a lighter pink here, so that I can work them in both at the same time. So a little bit of clove oil in it, in order to be more able to move around. So 230 and a little clove on. So there are so many different ways and variables. For example, one has to account for how oily or lean the turpentine is, and always making sure the mixture is super liquid, not dried up in a clumpy pile. And so a combination of lavender oil and clove oil will have you have the best results in order for a beautiful outcome. Okay. 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 So what I would like is I would like this cabbage rose, which I painted in Berlin. I would combine it with I did change this drawing around so that it is more a closed one. Here it's very, very open, and one has to almost it kind of almost look like a peony where there are so many different petals, almost too many. Less is good enough, because for clarity one wants to add it a little bit. So all the character, all one needs to know is that it is a cabbage rose or Rosa centifolia, how Jean-Pierre Reduté always studied in the French Malmaison, commissioned by the Josephine, Napoleon's wife, who was so well known for painting beautiful roses in the classical style. So the character of that cabbage rose is really that one sees a clear opening, very dark, and the light hitting one side of the cabbage rose. It's like a ball, one side light, other side shadow, and one has to be consistent in order to make the shape noticeable. And both sides are dark, then it looks flat. So we want to, that is the one thing we definitely have to keep in mind. So we will be starting with the center, because the center is the darkest. So in order not to accidentally get too dark anywhere else, we better paint the inside center first. So we load the brush nicely, and that is a nice darker paint, the darkest pink. And where the rose is really the darkest, I put some really nice dark saturated paint down, and then I move over to the next area, load the brush a little bit more, and now I will continue to paint one little leaf after the other. So yeah, I can wipe this out. So this close medium technique allows you to have enough time to mold the shapes while you paint, so you don't have to be afraid that, oh, it dries up too quick and one cannot do any corrections, because while you put the paint on just like that, you will have enough time to move the paint around, and you can lift out. You see, I remove some paint, I lift out some highlights here. So this will give you enough. Now, if you wait too long and wait like 20 minutes and then want to go back and add more changes and so on, then it will be already a bit firm, and then one can see that one messed with it and it looks overworked. So the freshness is just what you want to look for. So I dip the brush already a little bit now into the less dark paint, so that I have these changes, because the gradation between very dark and very light. So because light comes from this side, and if you have a bowl, this area of the rose will of course get more light. So keep that in mind, so that it does not get all dark only inside, but already here towards the outside gets a little bit lighter already, like that. One petal, and then the next petal here. So the left, basically the left area is the, gets a little bit of highlighted edge. So I take a bit paint out of the brush here. The outer edge is very light, because more light hits the upper edge of the rim of the rose. So I remove the darker color and definitely have a lighter edge now. There's a little foldback I want to add. That's the I'd like to wipe some highlights more here while it's still nice and wet. Yeah, one can wipe this in nicely. And the side. This petal, I'd like to do just like this. So yes, this is a scratch art tour, which is perfect for when the paint already got a little bit too too dry. So I can scratch. It's good for corrections. turn back here. What is this? This area here? And the little butterfly is sitting on this leaf. Super light, so I wipe out more. And we will, you know what, I have a little bit dark blue, which I want to work into the shadow side. Because it looks really pretty if there is another hint of a different color in the cold shaded area visible. So I also want to do a fold back. So it has to be dark. And the movement has to be in the direction one wants to, in order to make sure that it's a curled fold back. So and then there are all kinds of overlapping little petals here. And one just has to watch out for the soft gradation. Now, what I'll do is I'll also use gray, because when the white needs to be shaded, it also wants to have a little bit of shadow, and not only the white of the porcelain. So in order to connect that, And if one paints the gray, later a tad of yellow on top of the gray lets it appear beautiful and vibrant and almost looks like a touch of green. So so the transition here between dark, dark, and then a lighter touch, and just blends it. And I remove always a little bit more paint from the brush onto the palette, so that you have a nice gradation. And because this one, we can little highlight. And now we always go in the direction of the vein. Hmm. Hmm. So, and now when one sees from the side a little bit that it gets already dull, so that the paint is drying. So now then one can already do add some little accentuating lines on top of it, which also saves you doing that in the second fire. So that one can do now. For more clarity. So these things. In the same way. And around leaf, paint around the leaf. Always to the center where it's mounted. So I started with a dark paint. Now I dip the brush into the little bit lighter paint and have gradations of color. Could also press down this way. This side here is a clear lighter side. Don't want to get too dark. So I remove always paint from the brush. So now the paint already dried a little bit, so it accepts already a second layer. So that is what I'm kind of doing here a little bit. Here and there a couple of accentuating outlines. Oh, and this one here. Darker on this side. Lighter here. We want to make sure a big one, the small one, and the smallest. And a little bit of accentuating lines. Leaving a little bit reflected light. And all about a larger shape. And smaller and a little bit. Okay, so that could be already for this one. Maybe here pulling it down a bit. And here we could do a little bit more darkness. The, the way outside of a rose petal can look warmer, pinkish, so I just put a little bit pink there because it always looks quite cute. All right. So now we will do let me see. Now I'll scoop out some green. As well as blue. And with the full brush, with a full saturated brush now, we'll just add that color on top. So just as a rule, what you want to keep in mind is you can do 2/3 of the warmer yellow-green and then 1/3 only of a colder blue-green, so that the whole design doesn't get too cold looking. And you just go over it kind of one time. The second time would already, dissolve the layer. So you just give it one layer like that, and then don't touch it anymore. And you want to make sure that you cover up the brownish mixture undercoating, so that it doesn't stand out too visible, so that that is at least covered. You see how easy that can get covered all in one layer, one fire. So, and this is about 2/3, I would say. And then the rest we can do on blue-green. It always, everything is a reconciliation of opposing forces. So if you have cold colors, you need warm colors to balance them out. If you have large objects, you need small objects to balance that out. If you have warm colors, cold colors, and making friends with the opposite. So if you have strong colors, you need a bunch of softer colors in order to have a nice spectrum of variations. All right, almost there. So when this has dried, you can go over it again if you need to do here and there a couple of colors a bit stronger. So it would accept it then already very quickly. But don't go over it when it's not dry enough yet. So not that you'll take it off by accident. Okay, so the only thing would be to add some color on top of the butterfly, but I don't want to keep you so long, so I would just like to thank you guys for watching, and I hope you got a couple of new ideas or little tips and so on, what could be helpful. Okay, thank you. This is my little cabbage rose for today. All right.
Birgit, it's absolutely
Bye-bye.
fabulous presentation. If anyone would like to unmute yourself and ask Birgit a question, now is the time to do that.
Thank you, Birgit.
Okay, very good. Nice. Thank
I
you
have
so
one
much.
question.
Yeah.
I have a question, Birgit,
Hmm?
is that on your palette, you have 4 little containers. The one in the
Yes.
heart, is that turpentine?
Yes, it is. This
And
is
then fat
turpentine.
oil? Okay.
Yes, this is fat oil, and that is the same like that. And I have also a clove oil as well as lavender oil, and
Okay.
yeah, so that are the combinations needed, and everything does a little bit something else in order to keep the paint flowing. Also, gold colors need a little bit of a different approach. They need a little bit more oils to make them go on smooth. So one has to just experiment with it and see what works the best and most fluent. Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
think
thank
Susan
you.
Greathouse had a question about the undercolor and the red paper.
Oh,
Susan,
yeah.
you want to address that?
Yes, so the underpainting color is you see, I prepared another one. That is a dark brown and a ruby mixture. So because a warm color, as you all remember from watercolor painting, if you want to mute a red, then you put green on in it to break it, to use a complementary color in order to shade it. So having a bit of the ruby, which is a complementary color to green, is makes a beautiful shadow color. So that is what you want to do first. And what particular was your question about the underpainting? Which color it is, or
Yes,
how to put it on?
color. I think
And my question was what color, so that's great. And then you mentioned
Yeah.
something about the red graphite paper, and you said it wasn't Sorel. What was it that you were using?
Exactly. This was ordered by the company Held of Helgate in the UK. They changed ownership, but you can still find it online from the next person who has the company now. But this is wonderful because it is waxy, and when you put it on, you can touch it, and it does not come off as easily as the dusty Sorel or the regular paper would. And you can do the waxing technique as well. The waxing technique, if you're not familiar with this, you trace the design on, and then you put powder paint on top of it, rub it in a little softly, and then clean off the excess and then you fire it in. And then what you have is the outline already fired in. If you use like a light brown like that, don't do it too light of a color, otherwise you don't see it so much. Black is too black, so like a half tone is fine. And then you have the design already fired in. And then you can just color in. Makes it really easy if you have a really complex design and think you don't get it done in one day, and you want to fire what you already have painted, and then the next day you can continue coloring in, then you don't lose the tracing in the fire.
Thank you.
Good, good. Yeah, you can contact me if you have more questions. My email is birgitporter@gmail.com. And yeah, I hope to all see you in one of the next upcoming seminars or at a iPad show or at the Georgia Convention in May.
Thank you, Birgit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Birgit.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Beautiful.
Thanks for watching.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Suzanne. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye.
Suzanne.
Thank
You
you,
also.
Suzanne. Happy holidays.
Peace.
Happy
Yeah,
holidays.
you too.
Bye.